So we got a bit of news to get to today, as a lot of it, well, I was gonna say a lot of it's gonna be rapid fire, but I'm not sure that it actually is going to be because I don't want to burn through it relatively quick. But there is some news that we're just gonna go over pretty easily and take it from there. And it starts with Carl Anderson's deal with New Japan to basically make good for what happened last year at Crown Jewel, or as a result of Crown Jewel and that situation in general. It was a nightmare, and I think the part that was a nightmare was the act of having to travel from Japan, from wherever Carl was in the States, to Japan. So I think that that didn't help, and having to travel with WWE and then having to travel back with New Japan. So I think even though we would have liked to have seen Carl Anderson remain with New Japan, I think his status with WWE is the reason why he did not stay with New Japan. You know, that's just my opinion, though. Kota Ibushi, who has been basically setting up his independent run, or setting up for an independent run, has been revealing places that he would love to work and setting up dates, especially or specifically Josh Barnett's Bloodsport over WrestleMania weekend and working for Game Changer Wrestling. But Kota Ibushi has also not ruled out the possibility of working at some point for WWE or AEW, as he has worked for, I believe, WWE before. I don't think he's worked for AEW before, but he had worked for WWE before during the Cruiserweight Classic a few years ago, and he did not rule out the opportunity to make that happen again. I think more than likely, if there is anything to say with Kota Ibushi, it's that Mr. Ibushi will likely be a freelancer for the time being and not settle for one company, but to see him in WWE or AEW over the long term would be something that I think all American wrestling fans would love to see, because I think everybody loves Kota Ibushi. The one thing I would like to point out, though, is that I highly doubt that Kota Ibushi will be a part of AEW's Forbidden Door with New Japan later this year, because of his prior relationship with New Japan. I highly doubt he will be under AEW's contract at that point because of the bad blood that he has with New Japan. I highly doubt that AEW would risk their relationship with New Japan, like you would think that they would, to work with somebody that is not on the best of terms with New Japan. But also, apparently, WWE is filming the old movie parodies for WrestleMania. If I remember correctly, I think they did movie parodies for WrestleMania 21, and it was a very common thing back in the day where they would do movie parodies for pretty much all the big pay-per-views, or a majority of the big pay-per-views, and that WWE would, had stopped doing it. I don't remember when they stopped doing it, but it was always enjoyed. I mean, it was always enjoyed by me. I thought it was funny seeing the guys do the movie parodies like they would. But either way, it is great seeing WWE doing it again, because it adds a little layer of comedic effect to the pay-per-views, which, I mean, I'm not saying we need, but it's always fun to see. And also, we got an update on the Bunny. The Bunny, who took a nasty spill during a match with Jamie Hayter, landing, I mean, I think it was she took a T-bone suplex and did not fully rotate on the T-bone. I could be wrong, but I think it was that she took a T-bone suplex and did not fully rotate. but she landed on her head, and from what the report says, the bunny had suffered a concussion and a broken orbital bone, or a fractured orbital bone. So, though the injury is severe or serious, it may not be as severe as some people may have first expected. So, I, for one, would say that I hope nothing but the best for a full recovery for the bunny, as she. I mean, honestly, she escaped something a lot more severe, in my opinion, from what was a scary spot during her match with Jamie Hayter on Dynamite. An update on AEW's Fight Forever will come at the end of the video, but we also have a report that a top star in WWE requested to work. Request to work for PWG. It was said that this report came in, or this request came in, before Jericho set up his thing with the JAS during the Battle of Los Angeles. So it is unknown who. It is unknown at this point who that person was, but it is very likely that the person that wanted to work for PWG is somebody who's worked for PWG in the past. That is an assumption, not an actuality. But, WWE has a number of members of the roster that have worked for PWG in the past, so it is entirely possible that that is the case. But I don't know that we will know unless the person's request is actually met with positivity, even though WWE has had a positive relationship with PWG in the past, as William Regal and other scouts have been in PWG's presence or at PWG shows on multiple occasions in the past. It doesn't mean that WWE is in that positive way, in that much of a positive way with PWG, that they will let a talent go to the show. But what I would say is that even if they didn't let a talent go to the show, PWG does have something that WWE does enjoy, and the thing that WWE does enjoy is having it where the talent would not be featured on television for another company, because that's something that WWE prevents their talent from doing, unless, of course, you're Carl Anderson working for New Japan and had a prearranged contract before signing with the company. But it would be interesting and crazy to see somebody work for PWG, especially after what the JAS did during the Battle of Los Angeles. Now, we got two more pieces before we finish, and number one is going back to something we talked about earlier in a previous news video, and that is Vince McMahon is looked at as a hindrance for, his involvement is looked at as a hindrance for the sale of WWE because of what happened last year, and a lot of media companies being unaware of, not liking the press that comes with having somebody who has that history. And I think that if Vince came back normally, if Vince came back on his own accord, if Vince, basically, how do you put it? If Vince, I guess the best way to put it is, if Vince did not come back how he came back, and came back for a Hall of Fame induction, and that was it, would that make a difference? And the answer to that question is, I think so, because I think one of the reasons why a lot of people don't want Vince around is because of how he came back. And also because of how could he come back based on what happened last year. How could he come back? So it does... not a lot is known about why he's causing it. A lot is known about why he's causing a hindrance, but not a lot is known about if that if Vince's involvement will hurt WWE to the point where they won't be able to get a sale off. Because then this goes back to the idea of if it's for the betterment of the company, Vince would step aside. And he said that. And he said that. I just don't know that Vince would actually step aside. You know what I mean? Would Vince actually step aside is the question. And, because he went through all this process, I think it is fair to say that him coming back is one of the reasons why his daughter stepped down, and many of the other executives that stepped down in the last couple of months have stepped down as well. But, the question is, where does this leave WWE? If they want to sell the company, and Vince is holding back them from selling the company, would that, how does this affect WWE selling the company? That's the part that I don't know. That's the part that I don't understand. And I think that's the part that everybody's asking about and wondering about, because we all want to know, is the biggest news in the history of our time gonna happen? Is WWE gonna get sold? Because I think, as somebody who's I can speak for somebody as a wrestling fan that has been a wrestling fan for the last 25 years almost. I never expected WWE to get sold. I never expected WWE to get sold. But I guess that's something that we will be talking about as time goes on, because right now we only know that he's looked at as a hindrance because of what happened last year with the, NDAs and the, silence, the money silencing or the cash payouts. There's a lot of questions with that, and I guess we'll find out more as time goes on. But the last update before we wrap up is AEW Fight Forever is set for a Q2 release. It is not 100%, but right now we might be seeing AEW Fight Forever in Q2 of 2023, which is April to June. So we got more information. We hopefully will get more information on that. I'm figuring closer to Revolution, but we may finally have a release date for AEW Fight Forever, and we got another news video to come, so stay tuned for that.